I don't hate the Battle Royale genre. I'm done with it for now. I put maybe 30 hours into PUBG when the game first came out, and you know what? I was done. I got my fill. I understood the appeal of the game, and those 30 hours I thoroughly enjoyed. I got out of PUBG around the time when loot boxes were added to the game, thankfully, and judging by the way that the community seems to interact with the developers, it seems that the developers of PUBG have an unusually long and slow reaction time to bug fixes, glitches. The game, from what I've heard, is barely changed on a technical level from the time that I played it in early access. It still doesn't look fantastic, it doesn't run great, it feels very shoddy and slapped together under the hood. This is actually why I do appreciate Fortnite, even if I don't play it. I appreciate that Fortnite, at least, has a very interesting art style that's very recognizable and unique. It's got a very fun, warm, inviting presentation, and technically it's not a complete disaster. Epic Games is very fast responding to player feedback, and overall, that game looks a lot more fun. There seems to be a lot of respect between both its players and the developer. Now, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is a game that I'm indifferent about. The zombies could be cool, but then again, I wasn't a big fan of Black Ops 3 zombies. The multiplayer could be cool, but I really did not enjoy my time with the beta. Now, Blackout, on the other hand, had a beta recently, and unlike the multiplayer beta, which I left completely indifferent about, the Blackout beta, I had a blast in, and I want to explain why. Blackout is a PUBG clone, and I mean that in the best way possible, because conceptually, PUBG is a very good game. It's a pity about its developers, though, who can't realize the game's potential. Whether it's due to incompetence, whether it's due to lack of experience with the engine, or what, just something's off with the way that that game's being developed. Now with Blackout, you have the Call of Duty engine, which you can definitely tell in-game that this engine is struggling to keep the very, very large world stable. Visually, Blackout isn't great looking. In fact, I would say it's pretty bad. It reminds me of a 2013 shooter. But once you get past that initial, ugh, this game looks dated, you start to recognize familiar patterns. The game does flow and play a lot like PUBG. There's houses that you can kind of enter by opening doors. The houses are even layered and structured very similarly. The footage looks very similar to PUBG in the first-person mode. But what I enjoy about this is that it's got the polish and the snappiness of your modern Call of Duty game. And they even seemingly got rid of hit scan specifically for Blackout. The weapons do actually have slightly tweaked recoil patterns, and there's actually what seems like bullet drop. Blackout is essentially a hodgepodge of familiar locations, aesthetic designs, and other kind of scenic views that you remember from your time in the series. In fact, you actually get to kind of choose characters from the Black Ops game series that you can play in the online space. It's a pity that there aren't more guns that are associated with the Black Ops series. It seems to be just almost exclusively stuff from Black Ops 4. I never actually encountered any zombies, which are part of the open world allegedly. There's even apparently a boss fight at one of the graveyard locations with a boss zombie that you can take down, which, hey, that sounds awesome. What's also kind of interesting is you can find perks, like from the multiplayer, lying around as equipment and stuff, but unlike multiplayer, these are not passive. You actually have to activate them, and they're kind of like little boosters. They stay active for about 2 minutes, and they give you the proper gameplay bonuses that is associated with that perk. So that's a kind of interesting way to integrate perk gameplay into the rhythms of a battle royale game. Something that is also very nice is that the different locations that you can land on, similar to PUBG, are actually inspired by real locations from the Black Ops series. There's an island dedicated to the Nuketown map. You can go to the Verrückt Asylum, if you guys remember Verrückt from World at War. In fact, something a little bit disappointing is that there wasn't more snowy type stuff in the map with some callbacks to Black Ops 1. I noticed the sound is also a lot better in the beta. I'm not sure if maybe it's just due to the open nature of the map, and so there's a lot of reverb and echo as your shots just bounce off into the distance, but the guns sounded a lot meatier and a lot heavier than what I encountered in the Black Ops 4 beta. Now that being said, there are still some guns that have that classic Treyarch, this doesn't really sound like how a gun should sound type moments, but you know, it's better than nothing. There's also a heavy focus on movement throughout the beta. It's very clear that what probably happened is they took a look at PUBG and they were writing down their notes on this is what we gotta do, this is what we gotta do, because we're making a PUBG clone here. But they also noticed that PUBG has a lot of those dull moments where you're just running from point A to point B. So they made a conscious effort to speed up the gameplay by adding a bit more vehicles than you would see in PUBG, as well as also other options such as a wingsuit, which is a callback to Black Ops 2's campaign, as well as this grappling hook so that you can kind of zip around the map like Spider-Man. It's really cool when you find the grappling hook. Well, Fortnite is a very, very unique take on PUBG with its own systems and mechanics that have elevated it into its own style of battle royale game. Blackout is definitely a PUBG clone, and to be honest, I prefer Blackout to PUBG. It plays a lot better. It looks, well, not amazing. It looks at least a little bit better than PUBG does. And the gunplay feels a lot smoother and more consistent than PUBG. And knowing the AAA nature of studios like Treyarch, I trust them to keep their game up and running a lot more than I trust the PUBG core. If I could bring up some issues that I did have with the beta, that to be fair, some of them have already been addressed and are going to be tuned down for the final game. Armor is a little bit weird in the beta. In fact, from my experience, armor is kind of a life or death situation. If you have armor, you're not going to die. You're going to win all your gunfights. If you don't, you may as well just stay away from all battles until you do find armor. Now, armor should give you protection, but it also shouldn't be so essential to the gameplay that it is the deciding factor in gunfights. Even if you get the drop on somebody, I found that if the person had armor, they had more than enough time to turn around and then put me down quickly. I would also maybe like to see weapon damage drop off lengthened a little bit. It seems like at certain distances, weapons are just useless. It doesn't matter if you have a really good weapon with a long-range scope or something. You just kind of need to wait until you can get close enough to the person, and then you have your standard Call of Duty match, which, to be granted, is a fear that I did have going in. Call of Duty is not designed for long-range gunplay like a Battlefield game would be, which is why I'm actually very interested to see what Battlefield 5 does for its Battle Royale mode, because I have a feeling it's going to be a lot smoother of a transition than Call of Duty was. But with Blackout, I do think that the weapons are a little bit weak. It's either the weapons are too weak or the player has too much health. One of those things. And when you stack the ridiculous armor on top of that, you've got a lot of problems where players are just kind of bullet sponges. Another thing that did throw me off is just how weird the visuals look. It's hard to explain without being subjective, but it's got that weird Treyarch plasticky look where nothing looks quite real or tangible. The grass looks fake, the guns look like they're made out of plastic and painted over. Even the hands don't look fantastic. Player models look weird and rubbery and kind of wax-like. I do think it's probably something to do with the way that Treyarch renders their games, or something to do with maybe the engine. It's hard to say, and it could also just be because it is a Battle Royale mode, but I do also remember the multiplayer beta looking like this, where it's just got this weird plastic look to everything. It's very odd. And it does throw me off. It makes everything look very unfocused, makes everything look very rubbery and very kind of it's a hard game to look at for an extended period of time. And overall, those are my thoughts on Blackout. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't think I would. I thought it would just kind of be a cynical cash in on the PUBG craze, but Not only did they take PUBG and write down its formula, they executed it much better than PUBG. And, well, it will not kill Fortnite. Fortnite is a free-to-play game with an inviting art style, widely accessible, and also available on almost every gaming platform available right now, minus the last generation. PUBG is a priced game. And if I were to choose between two priced games, PUBG or Blackout for Black Ops 4, I'd definitely go with Blackout. So ultimately, I'm incredibly impressed